Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, welcome. I'm Jane, and Mike, my husband, does everything behind the camera. We're British early retirees, we have no debt, we've paid off the mortgage, and we live a thrifty, frugal and money-saving life here in Brittany and northwest France. And every Friday we bring you something food related, and I was inspired, as I often am at the end of each month, by some of the really worrisome and in some cases really quite desperate questions that get asked in lots of the Facebook groups I'm in. And lots of the groups I'm in are about budgeting, frugal living, money saving, housekeeping, those type of things. And the questions will look like this. Hi, it's the end of the month. I've got 3 children. I've only got, $20, pounds, euros and a family to feed and help me, what can I do? And the first thing I would say to anybody giving advice to people like that is to never tell them what they should have done. Well, you should have built up a stockpile over the time and then built up a few tinned goods and dried goods. That's not helpful. So in response to that, just in case anybody ever turns to YouTube looking for any of that kind of advice, I'm going to put together 30 meal ideas here, and of which I can say in times in our lives when we have been broke and had kids to feed, we've eaten every single one of these. So 30 meals that you could literally make for around €2 or $2 or £2 for the family, for the whole family meal. So you could actually put that together and feed people. And lots of these meals and ideas that I've got today are things that you may have in your cupboard, or you may have floating around the bottom of the kitchen, just a few bits and pieces that you can put a meal together. So that's what this video is about today, is those 30 meals that you can put together when you're desperate, when you're so short of money. And let's get going with them, because it's going to be a real quick list. I've broken this down into sections. My first section here is rice or pasta based meals. So the first one is just cook your pasta, toss it in butter or margarine, sprinkle it with a bit of garlic powder, or if you've got any garlic, crush it up, mix that with the butter, stir it together. I promise you it will fill somebody's belly. The next one is either tomatoes with rice or tomatoes with pasta. So cook your pasta, get your tomatoes out of a tin into a pan, crush them down with a fork, maybe add any herbs, salt, pepper, any garlic powder you've got, maybe a little bit of oil to that as well. Toss that together with either cooked pasta or cooked rice. The next one is a version of like fried rice. So you get an onion, you fry that in a little oil, margarine or butter. You mix that then with tinned tomatoes, mush it up again, and add that again to tinned pasta to cooked pasta or cooked rice. And we often eat tomatoes sauce with pasta. It's a regular meal for us. The next one that I've got for you is cooked pasta or cooked rice with cheese and peas. So it could be a tin of peas, you've got a few peas in the freezer, cook them up, add that to cooked pasta, add that to cooked rice, and then any kind of cheese that you might have, any kind of cheese, but grate it with the small grater. On your box grater, you can see you've got the bigger pieces and the smaller pieces. Even like a cube of cheese the size of a matchbox spread across pasta and few peas, maybe a bit of oil, bit of margarine, bit of butter, will create a meal. Good bit of salt and pepper, and you can make that little bit of cheese just add to plain pasta. The next one, and we regularly still eat this, it's fried rice. So anything that you've got, have you got a few vegetables in the bottom of the freezer? Have you got an onion? Have you got anything that you could chop up and fry in a bit of oil, and then add in whatever spices you've got, and then add in rice? You can either then add in the dried rice and then you can add the water to it and cook that, or you can cook the rice first and add that. The next one is using your lentils, if you've got any dried lentils, to make a very rough kind of bolognese. So you chop your onion, if you've got any garlic, and then you add any herbs you've got to that, or even a little bit of chili if you've got to that. Chuck in your lentils, brown lentils, green lentils, or red lentils, and then add the water to that until that is cooked. If you wanted to, if you've got any tomato paste, sauce, or ketchup, stick that in there as well, and then serve that with pasta. Then there's the course of anything which is like macaroni cheese based. So again, cook your pasta, keep the pasta water, add some cheese to that. Like I said, even a piece of cheese the size of a matchbox would be enough to spread across 4 people. Or if you've got any cheese spread, anything like that, square cheese in a tube, any kind of cheese. But then to make it kind of creamy, add back the pasta water and stir with it. So it doesn't have to be macaroni, it can be anything. The last one, and this one, I used to feed this to my kids when we were broke and we just needed to, it was like they've had their breakfast, they've had their lunch, they've had their dinner, and they're still hungry. So I would get the toast. I would get some toast. I would toast it, obviously. I would smash it up in a bag with a rolling pin. I would add in some garlic powder and a little oil. I would toss that in a frying pan for a little bit, and I would just sprinkle that on top of warm cooked pasta with a bit of oil. It makes a meal. It really does fill bellies. Right, the next one I've got on my list are all potato based, and whether you use instant mashed potatoes or you've got potatoes and you're mashing them, it's a reasonably affordable thing to do, and it will fill people up. And it's a kind of way of making like patties or like potato-y burgers. Again, onions, if you've still got onions in the cupboard, and you chop an onion as finely as you possibly can, and you fry it in a little bit of oil, and you mix that with mashed potatoes and any herb seasoning spices you've got in the cupboard, dash of soy sauce if you've got it, a dash of ketchup if you've got it. Form that into like patties with your hand, and fry that in a little oil, or make one big patty and put it on a piece of baking paper and put it in your air fryer. The next one is a whole meal, and I promise you, I fed this to my kids as well, is I've used instant mashed potato, and then I've used a tin of or a jar of hot dog sausages, and I've used instant gravy. So instant gravy that makes the sort of meat flavoured gravy, and just serve them that as a meal. So it's been the potatoes that's filled them up. Here in the UK and here in France, a packet of hot dogs is still cheaper than a packet of sausages. So the next one I've got here is tinned potatoes. Using tinned potatoes and frying them with anything, frying them with onions, frying them with garlic, and just serving them that. The next one is a potato pancake. So if you've got instant mashed potatoes, you've only maybe got one sachet left, you mix that up, but you make it a little bit wetter, and you add in a load of flour to that if you've got flour, maybe an egg if you've got one left, and then again form that into kind of pancakes. So it's a looser mix that you can put into the pan with a little bit of butter, margarine, or oil, and they make pancakes with that. And the next one, of course, is baked potatoes. So if you've got any potatoes, stick them in the microwave and then finish them off in the oven or the air fryer. And then this is a very British thing. So this is how you make a €1 tin of tuna go a long way, is you mix it with just cheap supermarket mayo and 1 tin of sweet corn, and that can feed 4 people with, a half-baked potato each. So that concludes the potato section. Hope any of those were helpful. Okay, the next section is all about beans and lentils, and this is if you've got any dried beans, dried chickpeas, dried mung beans, dried black beans, dried pinto beans in your cupboard, and you are at the end of the month and you just think, well, I've got these, what the heck am I going to do with them? I've got people to feed and no money. So the first one is obviously a lentil soup. So again, chop your lentils, any vegetables that you might have in the cupboard, in tins, in the freezer, a good mug full of lentils, and then a couple of cups or mugs of water. And do you have any stock cubes? Failing that, substitute one of the tins of cups of water for a tin of soup maybe, and add that in and just cook it until the lentils have all dissolved and it's a lentil soup. Add salt, pepper, spices to it. It will fill people up. The next one is a chickpea stew. If you've got chickpeas in your cupboard, they will need soaking overnight. So get them in a big pan of water overnight. Add a sprinkle of salt to it. Let them soak overnight. Next day, cook them up in a pan or your Instant Pot. They don't take so long to cook if you have got them soaked overnight. And that's when you can literally add in, so you fry off some onions, you add in your cooked chickpeas, you might add in some tins of tomatoes or tins of soup or anything that you've got to add to that to flavour that. And the chickpeas are full of protein, full of fibre. They really do fill you up. The next one is a mixed bean chilli. So you've got the beans in the cupboard, you've got maybe lentils in the cupboard, you've soaked them overnight, you've cooked them the next day. And you're just going to make it as if you're going to make a chili, but you haven't got any meat to add to this. So you're going to add whatever vegetables, whatever beans you've got, and then make your sauce up with tinned tomatoes or with soup of any kind. I mean, I wouldn't put in cream of mushroom soup, but I would put in any vegetable-based soup to that if I didn't have any stock cubes, if I didn't have any tinned tomatoes. The next one is split pea soup. So that's any of those yellow peas, split peas that you might have in the cupboard. Again, soak them overnight. So it's the same again. You fry up some onion and some oil. You add in the split peas and then you add in some water or stock. Cook them until it's all soft. Mash them with the potato masher. Use your blender stick. Split pea soup. The next one is burgers made of lentils or patties made of lentils. So cook your lentils of whatever sort it is until they are soft but not mushy. It doesn't work so well with red lentils. It works really well with brown lentils and with green lentils. Cook them up and then add in fried onions, a bit of garlic, and maybe if you had it, some instant mashed potato or some flour to add it in. So it's a good firm patty. Make it into the burger shape and fry them. Serve them up with some ketchup or whatever you've got to have with that. Or that tiny block of cheese that I said again, spreading that across all of them so it melts on top of them as well. The next one I've got here is something a bit like the bean chili that you could serve and you've only got a bit of it left. But add it to a wrap. And I'll now go on and talk about bread and flour based things that you can make, and you could use the leftover chili in a wrap. The next one, if you've only got a bag of flour and you've got those chickpeas I've mentioned before, that you could take the chickpeas, turn them into hummus. Google that, how to make hummus. I promise you it's delicious and it keeps people fed for pennies. Is to look up how to just use your flour and water and a bit of oil and a bit of salt to make flatbreads. Google it, look it up, go to YouTube, how to make flatbreads. Dead simple. The next one is obviously pancakes. Pancakes is a bit difficult, but I mean, if you've got a couple of eggs and you need to spread those eggs across quite a few people, is to make pancakes, to make the European type of pancakes, the crepe based pancakes. And then I can remember not having anything to give the kids for any treats, for anything sweet, but I would make them pancakes and I would put a scraping of chocolate spread on it or a bit of jam or a bit of marmalade on it. They are belly fillers. The next one is a basic pizza dough. You can make a basic pizza dough with baking powder if you don't have yeast. You can make a basic pizza dough with the same volume of yogurt to pizza dough. So I'd empty out a couple of pots of yogurt into a bowl. I would then get my scraper, so I've got all the yogurt out. I would then measure out 2 of those pots of flour add in a baking powder, some bit of salt, form it into a dough, and then I have a basic pizza base, and then I can just put tomatoes on that if I had to, tomato sauce on top of it if I had to, or I could just make that basic pizza dough and make a kind of margarine or garlic, salt and pepper on top of it, so it's like a garlic bread from that. Then there's if you've got bread, is making what British people call eggy bread. Some people call French toast, or pain perdu here in France. So you've got your bread, you've cut it into chunks, or you've got your slices, and you've got some milk, you've got the eggs, you've beaten it together. Add a bit of sugar, a bit of vanilla, whatever you've got, so the bread soaks it up, and then fry it. It's a belly filler. My mum used to feed us that. We used to really love it. The next one is fritters. So if you have got those couple of eggs and some flour, and you mix that up, and you've got some vegetables that you have very, very, very finely cooked, shredded, and then you've lightly fried them, then add that to the batter, and they come out, if you've had baking powder to it, like the big fat thick American pancakes. So there's some things, if you've got a bit of flour in the house, or a bit of bread in the flour, a bit of bread left in the house, that you could make things up that would feed you. Just keep going until payday. Finally, and I think these are really good as well, is any kind of soups. Any soups that you can make. If you've got carrots, you bought that big bag of carrots and they keep you going. And is to make a carrot and lentil soup. So you basically chop your onions, fry them up with the lentils, and then you add in your grated carrots. And why do I say grated carrots? Because they cook quicker. Grated carrots, just wash them and grate them. And then add in some water with a couple of stock cubes and let that cook down. Carrot and lentil soup. The next one is a cabbage-based soup. And I think on that one I would go like tomato flavoured. So I'd go onion, tin of tomatoes, add in the water, shred my core of a cabbage that I've got left as finely as I possibly can. I like shove in a few bits of dried pasta to that at the end, and maybe some beans into that as well, which we can sort of make it kind of like minestrone based. Absolutely delicious meal. The next one is a tomato soup. Again, I'm relying on onions a lot here, but I think onions just flavour the world, don't they? Fry up some onions, finely chopped, add in some tins of tomatoes, mash it down as far as you possibly can. And then to finish that off, do you have any milk? Or do you have at the end of that a pot of yogurt to thick that up? If you don't have any of that, a couple of spoonfuls of corn flour, cornstarch and water. Maybe 1 teaspoon to begin with, add it to half a cup of water and blend that in so it thickens it up. The next one is any vegetables that you've got, saute them with any onions or any garlic that you've got, and then cook that, and then have that add in as you come sort of the midpoint of that is chuck in as much rice as you can. So it's a thick, vegetable-y, ricey, stewy, soupy thing. And the final one is potatoes and onions. And this is if you've got 1 sachet of instant mashed potatoes, or you've only got a couple of potatoes left. So saute your onions, fry up your onions, add in your potatoes, and then add in, if you've got it, milk. And add in milk so it cooks it up. So it's a onion and potato soup. You could do that equally with instant mashed potatoes. I hope those soup-based recipes helped you. So if you've got to the end of this video and you wondered why I'm in the car again, watch Sunday's video. It's because the house is in absolute chaos. We are in the last room that we are upgrading and refurbishing, ready to put the house on the market. And we came across a problem and we had to get a builder in a hurry, and the mason, the builder, is here today and fixing something, and then we should have the house back to normal for next week. Thank you for watching. If I've left anything out that you think could be helpful, leave it in the comment below. You know, absolute, we haven't got any money meals. Drop them below. And next week, I'm going to be sharing with you snacks that you can make for kids, for teenagers, or yourselves. Again, when you're really, really short of money. Thank you, everybody. We hope you have a good week. We'll see you on the next video. Bye.